Now Mark's coming down to, I'm going, I drew the people who not existing straw.
How's it going?
Great, how are you?
Doing well. Not read that, read down with my agenda.
No, I was not looking for that. Okay.
So I will try and do it now, but it never works for me here though.
Are you connected to the Wi-Fi?
I usually turn it off because it doesn't work as well with the Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay.
But let me look. I am, so we'll try it.
Try
And if it doesn't, then I will turn it off.
Well.
No, we don't just talk.
Pardon? Oh, God, yeah.
See you.
Well, no, I don't, yeah, because I'm all the same. So be there.
Say our professional
So
recognition board, they're the ones first name.
Manuel.
After I start a P.
Oh, Pasquale.
Pasquale.
And that was, yeah. Yes, sorry. I'm thinking
Ramirez,
of
I
a
got
different
Pasquale.
Yes.
Pasquale. I'll make sure to find out for sure before next week.
I spoke to him at the actual ceremony.
Well, there you go. Well, yeah, go to that bank account, but it still is allocated. It's probably give you that for me.
Nobody's coming?
Will, online,
But that doesn't all transfer.
Will's online, and I haven't heard from Jake.
Lars?
Or Lars, I haven't heard from Lars yet.
Or Thomas. All right, we'd like to welcome everyone and call to order the study session of West Valley City Council. We're in the multipurpose room of City Hall. It is January 16th, 2024. And at the moment, we have Councilman Christensen, Councilman Harmon, Councilman Hughes, and myself. And Councilman Whetstone online, and we'll excuse for the moment Councilman Nordfeld and Councilman Fitzgibbon. We're also joined at the table with Mr. Flores, our interim assistant city manager, and Ms. Kamick, our city recorder. We will go to our minutes of January 9th, 2024. Turn it to the council for a motion or discussion.
For approval of those minutes.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those pass. Thank you. And Councilman Nordfeld has joined us. We will now go to our award ceremonies and proclamations and ask Ms. Young to come up and talk to us about Hispanic heritage. Is she moving? Nope. So Congressional Recognition Award.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Jamie Young, Parks and Recreation Director. So we had the privilege of nominating Pasquale Hernandez from the golf course. He works for, is it Hernandez? Ramirez. I must know somebody else with a similar name. He received an award from Congressman Burgess Owens earlier this year. It was as part of the Hispanic Heritage Month, and it was a really great recognition for him and certainly a great recognition for the city. I don't know if you'll want me to read that or if you'll do that, Mayor, because I think officially you were the one who nominated him, correct? I'm happy to read that in the ceremony next week. Either,
Okay.
either way, I'm
I
happy to
don't
do
have
it.
it here, so.
I'll make sure we have it either
Okay.
way, whoever's.
Yeah, let's let you do it because he is your employee, right?
Yes. Yeah, and he is really great. He has worked for us at the golf course for years. He has at our Veterans Day program played taps. He has carried the flag in the parade. He has really been a great asset to us as a veteran. He he does the parade in his full blue uniform and walks the parade route carrying the flag in very warm temperatures. So we're really happy to have him as an employee and certainly honored to have him receive this award. So yeah, I'm happy to present that to him next week.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions about that?
Nope, and I did attend the banquet and it was really nice. It wasn't a banquet, it was just an award ceremony, but it was really nice.
And yeah, he was really honored to have that recognition. He lives and works both in the district for Burgess Owen, so he was really honored to have that recognition.
So, okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
All right, we'll move to our public hearing for next week, and it is going to be Mr. Flores to introduce and then Chief Jacobs to present.
Yeah, so I just wanted to point out and remind you that, so this requires a 30-day notice. So we first noticed you on December 18th. And the initial plan was to have this in study on the 23rd, next Tuesday, and then in the regular meeting on the 6th. However, next Tuesday's study meeting will be all tied up with the city manager presentation. So that's why it is on today's study meeting, and we will move it or have it be scheduled on the February 6th regular meeting. So
Oh, okay.
just wanted to
Because it
clarify
has to go
that.
past the 30 days
Yes.
and that'll be the 16th.
And it was just noticed for February 6th, and after talking with legal, they just felt like leaving that notice in place and not making any adjustments would be best for the grant process.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Colleen Jacobs, Chief of Police, and I am here with the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant. This is a federal formula grant that we have the privilege of receiving every year. And so we bring this to you every year as part of their acceptance requirements. It does require that 30-day notice, and it does require approval of this government body. So the grant amount is for $126,051. And we will be using it for software, equipment, supplies, and training throughout the police department.
Awesome. To the council, any questions? Okay, great job. Thanks. Okay, we'll move on to our ordinances. We'll go to ordinance 24-04. We'll turn the time to Ms. Kamick.
Thank you. This item is just the item that the council requested a couple weeks ago. So essentially, the ordinance would just adjust so that a mayor pro tem would be elected by the council following a municipal election, so every 2 years. We also put in the ordinance a date of February 15th, just to give the council some time to get that on the agenda and get it through, but we felt like it would be best to have a deadline of some sort, so we can adjust that, but mid-February felt about right, so.
Okay, any questions on that one? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our resolutions, resolution 24-17, and we'll turn the time to Mr. Wilson. Oh, he's behind me, right? Okay, to present that.
Good afternoon, Kobe Wilson with the Engineering Division. So this is our Crosstown Trail project from 27th to Bangerter, 2700 west of Bangerter, is ready to be advertised. And with the federal money involved with that, they typically require us to update the federal aid agreement prior to advertising the project. Just a little bit of a history on this one. We applied for TAP funding several years ago and did 2 different rounds of that and got 2 different funding sources of about 480 the first time and another 320 the second time. So we have A total of around $600,000 of the TAP funding. And then the county has also pitched in on this project just shy of $1.4 million. So that takes us over, just over the $2 million range as far as outside funding sources. Our final project estimate for this project's coming in at about $2.8 million. This does include, we've added some asphalt. We're going to do a preservation treatment along the entire corridor, but out on the west end, basically between 3600 West and where the concrete starts by Parkview Park. We're going to actually do a mill and fill as part of this project. So while the contractors out there will get that mill and fill in there as well. But essentially that takes our total cost estimate up to $2.8 million. And so UDOT likes the federal aid agreement updated before we advertise, just committing the city to those funds.
Okay, any questions?
So the plan's been finalized. We know what we're doing there.
Yep.
The copy of it, or just one pager.
Yeah, we can get you
Okay.
an overview on that. Yep.
So I have one question. So you say you're doing the mill and fill. Where is that exactly?
So that's basically from 3600 West, where the asphalt turns to concrete in front of around Parkview Park. All the asphalt west of the existing concrete is going to have a mill and fill treatment on it.
So on the south side of the road, are you gonna put sidewalk, curb and gutter in? Since
Yeah.
it's not there?
Yeah, so the entire stretch, all sidewalk gaps will be filled with this project. So yep, we'll have continuous sidewalk both sides of the road for this entire corridor.
Okay,
From 27th all the way to 3600 West. Yep.
sweet. Okay. Seeing no other questions, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, our consent agenda. Did anybody have any questions on that one? There's just 3 items this time.
I'm late. I'm here. Present.
You. So we'll have a communication from you later about Jack in the Box.
Oh, yeah.
Since I think you were probably their first customer.
Do a full review.
Okay. Seeing no questions on the consent agenda, we will go to our communications. Is Lincoln here? Did I not see Lincoln? He wanted to be moved first in line. But-
Here, so
Okay.
we'll
Just
continue
keep
as
on.
planned.
All right, we'll now turn the time over for our West Fest discussion to Ms. Young.
Yes, hello again. Thank you, Mayor. Jamie Young, Parks and Recreation Director. So the last, West Fest has had a few changes over the last year that maybe you were not made aware of. And so I was asked to kind of come and talk about the process for that and where we're at today. So recently some of the rules changed with the insurance that the city required West Fest to have to hold the festival in the park as a completely separate entity from the city. The city required them to have an insurance policy to indemnify the city just like we would any other event. And that insurance policy required that every single vendor and every single entertainer and every single food truck and anybody affiliated with West Fest had their own insurance policy, which really is not a standard ask of those types of vendors. For the entertainers and the food booths and the craft booths, there's usually really small home businesses that don't have that kind of insurance. So it was requested by the West Fest committee. Many of you know Steve Vincent, former city council member, very long time West Fest chairperson. It was requested that the city either waive the insurance policy or just have it fall under the city's umbrella. Now, standard in cities is that their city festival does fall under the city as a city event, and there's not a separate insurance requirement for that. It's just a part of a city event. So it was determined that rather than the city just take that on, that the city kind of have that be truly a city event, both for the insurance purposes, but also for have the finances fall under the city. So there were a lot of conversations about the best way to go about that. And it was determined that the city would fully support that, legally at least, with covered under the city's insurance policy. So West Fest is not executed any differently than what it's been in the past. We still have a committee of community members who coordinate pretty much everything. About the only difference is all the contracts now go through the city. Our city attorney's office has been really generous with their time and their effort to have all the agreements in place for the entertainers and the service providers, which includes fireworks and tents and toilets and fencing and the carnival and all of those that really were just had their own agreements with Westfest alone. So that's really the only difference. The rest of the committee, the city employees on that committee are myself and Craig Thomas, who really don't do anything differently. Like I said, with the exception of the contracts that I've overseen and then the bidding process for those services. The selection of all the entertainment, the coordination of booths, the coordination of everything. This Parks and Recreation has done the parade. We've done some of the extra recreation events that are affiliated with Westfest. We've always done those and we continue to do those. Really, the only difference is the contracts that go through the city now. As financially, Westfest is really, really close to a break even every year with sponsorships and entry fees for the booths and whatnot. And so it's not really a financial risk to the city. Knowing that if there's not enough financial support, that we have to reduce things like fireworks, and really that's kind of one of the biggest costs for Westfest. Westfest at one time had a nonprofit status, but it was never a charitable organization where it was like a 501c3 or anything. It was tax exempt because of it, just the nature of how the finances were done. But that isn't any different. I've been assured by our finance folks that donations can still be tax deductible, assuming that Westfest maintains its nonprofit status within the city budget. So really that's the biggest difference is the fact that it falls under the budget falls under the fitness center. And I think, like I said, I think last year it was within like $2,000 or $3,000. Westfest has dissolved all of its own accounts and all of its existing contracts. And now all of those things are procured and handled through the fitness center budget.
Okay.
Do you guys have specific questions about Westfest? We meet next week on starting our planning process for 24. We're really excited about this summer.
Okay, any questions from the council?
I have a question for Mr. Steve Vincent.
Okay. Mr. Vincent, do you want to come to the mic?
Sure.
Introduce yourself.
Steve Vincent, citizen.
Is there anything more that we can do from the city side to help support Westfest?
No, the city staff has always been wonderful. The park staff has always been, I mean, they do a lot for us. They always have for Westfest. The staff has been there to collect garbage and help set up and help tear down. And so, no, it's always been a great relationship. So I can't think of anything they need to do. So.
About the Westfest committee members, you need more or?
We always need more. So, if you know people who are just good at organizing and doing things, they don't have to have any special expertise. I think all of us that get on the committee, we kind of learn as we go, and I know we could use some help with the food vendors right now. Karen is handling the bulk of both food and craft vendors. So if you know somebody that's just a good organizer, you don't have to be crafty. You don't have to be a foodie person, just people who are organized and can follow through with things. So yeah, if you know people that want to be involved, and we can sure use them. So
that's next year. You still have the Morrises helping you then.
they're awesome.
They're tremendous.
Karen
take on a lot.
Karen takes on way more than she should, and she really does need some help. So yeah.
She has other responsibilities too this year.
Yeah.
Well, you might have control to not give her so much.
I'm only giving her more.
Okay. Do you know about how much the city contributes for the fireworks or whatever? What their financial obligation has been in the past?
Usually we're spending about $17,000 for fireworks. So, which is, I mean, if I go back to when we originally were doing it, the city was spending 20,000, so we've backed off on that. This last year, we did it for both nights for the same price, so.
That's amazing.
I think a lot of it was because of during the COVID, nobody did anything and the firework provider had stuff he wanted to use.
Okay.
So gave us a really good deal, but yeah, fireworks are about $17,000. The biggest, and I don't know how much you want to, but the biggest cost really is our tents. Tents cost us a lot of money. Sound system costs a lot of money. And we recoup all those costs just by renting the spaces, so.
Great. Okay, well, thank you for that report.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah, they're really great. Any other questions about West Fest?
He's just, since we're taking it over a little bit more than what we have in the past, is there more impact on city staff? Or other than legal probably has to review contracts, but other than that, is there more demand on that?
No, with the exception of me working with legal to execute those contracts, no. I mean, we've always had the, like I said, those extra recreational activities and the parade because we wanted those things to happen. And eventually, hopefully we get a public, a community member to take on the parade as well as a committee member. But that's really the only extra work is the procurement process of those vendors and then the contracts, which was a lot last year being the first time we did it. But this year, you know, it will be a lot easier process and, but not a lot extra work for us at all. There's always been really great support from parks and police and public works and neighborhood services and all the city departments have always been really supportive of West Fest and it certainly is a team effort.
So we hope.
Huge effort from the fire department, I mean, for fire. and
Police and fire for sure.
I mean, as you can imagine, with most carnivals, there's a certain element that comes that we don't always like being there, but, and the police department, and along with a lot of times the Metro Gang Unit have been there to support us and help us in that area, which is massive help.
Do you know what the cost for insurance was when it was under West Fest? And then is there additional cost for the city now that it's with the city?
So it wasn't the cost, it wasn't cost prohibitive. I think the insurance was a couple thousand, which we were able to make up in sponsorships and with those tent rentals. It was really the extra requirements that every vendor and every entertainer had to have their own insurance policy and they don't have that. So that was really the biggest factor in switching it. There isn't an extra cost. The city has a liability insurance through IRMA and the cost is the same. It didn't increase the cost to the city to have that fall under the city insurance policy.
So the new system we have right now, is that gonna have more vendors in the future or just the same?
I don't anticipate expanding a whole lot just because of the space that we have. I think we're about at our max for space as far as at Centennial Park. We do have the option certainly of moving out to kind of where the soccer field space is for more vendors, but I think our number of vendors, we don't want to have too many because then they're not getting visited and they don't feel like it's worth their effort. So we have even this past year, we had fewer food vendors than what we've had just so that they had a little bit more, a lot more in sales and they were a lot happier with that than the year prior where I think we had 22 or something food vendors the year before. And I think this year we had like 15 or 16. So they all were a lot more happy. But I don't know that we have a ton more space to expand with a whole lot more vendors. Space and for their benefit to have visitors and sales in the businesses and services they're providing.
I would say the one thing that has changed for some of our vendors is as a West Fest committee, like when we paid our performers, we were able to hand them a check as they walked off the stage. With it going to the city, there's like a 2-week delay and that was a little bit concerning for them. I got a lot of phone calls, you know, when's it coming? When's it coming? And so kind of a little personal touch is a little bit taken away. And I always enjoyed going up on the stage and handing them a check, you know, and I don't know, maybe something can happen where we could still do that, but yeah, so there's a few little changes that because the city wheels are a little slower.
And really the big thing there was Juneteenth is a holiday right after West Fest. And so everything has, so we actually last year did submit them the Thursday before West Fest so that they would all be paid the following week. And, but just with the delay with being a federal holiday, the payments were sent out. They got them the following week. So there was a little bit of a delay there, but I assured them that they had been processed and that they would be getting their checks. And so there were a few services that we had to pay 50% upfront for some of the bigger entertainers, and some of them asked for that, and we were okay to do that. And so we just paid the balance, but a lot of them we just paid and had them all paid certainly within 2 weeks. Some of them even got the checks that same week of the week after West Fest.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks for coming to our meeting. All right, we'll go to our essential piece presentation by Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor. Craig Thomas, Neighborhood Services Division Director. I was just asked to bring forward our Neighborhood Services desire to bring back the Essential Piece Awards. Kind of give you kind of the framework of what we're thinking of. We feel like the Essential Piece Awards have a significant value within our community to help build community, build place, build sense of pride within our community. So our proposal is to do one Essential Piece Award a month. There would be various sectors that we'd be recognizing, whether it be obviously our residents, a police department employee, a city employee, one of our nonprofit partners, a Healthy West Valley committee member, Healthy Clean and Beautiful committee member. I mean, any number of sectors could be recognized. When you think about a city of 40,000 plus people, it's not going to be hard for us to find those 12 individuals in a year. So we would recognize them one person a month. We'd primarily do that through social media platforms, just to acknowledge them that month. On a quarterly basis, we would include them in our neighborhood services newsletter that goes out to all of our neighborhood groups. And then on an annual basis, we would like to bring them to City Council in December and do an official recognition before council in December. So it's a pretty simple program, but I think it has a lot of value, especially for the residents or those that are receiving the recognition. So I think that's it in a nutshell.
Awesome. Any questions?
Thank you. What's the nomination process?
Nomination process could be through you. It could be through our online portal. We'll set up a nomination portal on the website so they can submit them through that. We know through social media posts that we often hear, well, so-and-so should get that as well. So we could follow up with those. We do have somebody in mind for January. She's been a significant impact within our community for a number of years. And so we thought it was time for her to receive a little bit of recognition. She's stepping away from her current role, so it seems timely. So nominations could come in any form.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lincoln is online, so I will promote him.
Okay.
Hi, Mayor.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Day one. We've got it in. Thanks
Still not
for.
there, so that's good.
Yeah, exactly. First, thanks for the opportunity to present to the council tonight. Wanted to give you just a quick update. As I'm sure many of you are aware, session started today, just jumped out of a meeting to jump on the Zoom. So thanks for allowing me to pivot from being in person to doing this. A little bit of read on the session this year, obviously 45-day session. The first couple of weeks that we're walking into are primarily going to be focused on the budget. The legislature in December did set their base budget, which allows them to essentially operate as they did last year. And then during the first couple of weeks of the session, they go through the appropriations process to determine any additional funding or shifts in funding priorities from previous years. So that's kind of what's going to be taking place for the next 2 to 3 weeks. I will tell you, from our the last 3 years have been kind of historic and record-breaking surpluses. We were working off of $1.2 billion surplus last year and a $1.4 billion surplus in the previous year. Walking into the 24 session, they have the grand total of $7 million of surplus this year. So it's going to be a very tight revenue year this year. Most members of leadership are telling everyone to kind of temper their expectations in terms of financial and fiscal requests coming out of the legislature, which will prove to be interesting for this new leadership team. I'm sure many of you have heard former Speaker of the House, Brad Wilson, had resigned from the legislature to run for the U.S. Senate. So we do have a new leadership team in the House. And then it's been kind of the historical leadership team of Stuart Adams is still in the Senate. We're going to be working on a host of policy issues this year. As has been the case for the last several years, the legislature is working a lot on issues surrounding affordable housing, land use development practices within municipalities and counties, as well as the homeless issues that we've been facing primarily along the Wasatch Front. So those will be some of the big policy issues. In terms of some of our fiscal issues, we are actively working with the Utah Olympic Organizing Committee and the legislature on funding and kind of the funding outline that's been established for some of the Olympic venues to include the Maverick Center. We are currently under contract with the Utah Olympic Organizing Committee to utilize the Maverick Center for some of the Olympic venues. As a part of that, the legislature did appropriate, this goes back now 2 years ago, roughly $70 million to bring those facilities up to current standards to host the Olympics. As a part of that consideration, the Maverick Center was awarded $10 million through structured payments. So in year one, we got $500,000. In year two, which is our current fiscal year, we have an additional $500,000 and then a lump sum payment of $9 million coming in fiscal year 25, which will be next July. As a condition of that, there was a requirement that we do raise funds locally to match any funds coming from the legislature. So there was a $10 million match requirement for the Maverick Center as well, which is something that we're actively working on this year to restructure what the match needs to look like from West Valley City. The administration had posed some concerns about our ability to meet that match and candidly wanted some of the improvements that we've made since the last Olympics to count towards that match requirement. So we have a meeting actually scheduled tomorrow to go over some of those match requirements, go over what we've currently spent on the building between the 2002 games and currently to demonstrate that we have been keeping pace with current trends and requirements for that building to successfully host the games in 2034. So that's kind of our big ask this year, is to restructure that $10 million ask or that $10 million match that's required of West Valley City. And then obviously make sure that the state's can honor its commitment on the $10 million that was appropriated towards the Maverick Center. So that's one of our big kind of financial asks that we're working on this year. Last thing that I'll kind of touch on tomorrow is Local Officials Day on Capitol Hill, where many cities will be coming up to meet with their legislators. I'm planning on participating in that. And then mayor, members of the council, whoever is planning on attending, please reach out to me. We'll make sure that we've got a table reserved at the lunch that's being hosted by the League of Cities and Towns, and would be happy to set up meetings with our individual legislators if that's something that you deem appropriate, Mayor, as you make your visit up to Capitol Hill tomorrow. And with that, I'm more than anything at this point, happy to answer any questions. And obviously, as the session continues to play out, we'll keep you guys apprised with weekly updates and bill tracking and status sheets for you to review as well in advance of the meetings that we have weekly as the City Council. With that, Mayor, happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Lincoln? Hey, it's an easy first day, no questions.
Okay, sounds good, Mayor. We'll plan on seeing you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go
In
to,
conjunction with that, who is going?
I think just myself. Nobody else signed up. Oh, did you? Oh. Angel did not tell me who had signed up. Okay,
Signed up right after the election.
there we go.
You want to wait until after that?
So I'll reach out. I don't know what time you want to go up.
I'll be going to start at 11.
At 11? Okay,
I've been up there beforehand and it's,
it's kind of a waste of time.
no.
Oh, okay.
It's never a waste of time, but there are other things I could be doing with that time.
Yes, the better use of personal time or of your time. So, yeah, I was gonna reach out and ask him what time he wanted me up there, but
We'll look for you.
okay. Be there with bells on. Okay, we'll now move to our community preservation presentation and we'll turn the time over to Mr. Morris.
Afternoon, Mayor and Council, Lane Morris, Community Preservation Department. I've just got a couple of slides here. Starting out with our current needs. And it's really primarily a budget issue for us. The city has an abatement fund that is utilized by multiple departments. That fund covers things like boarding up vacant houses at the request of the police department, or cleaning up homeless camps, or building inspections wants to tear a house down or some structure. And so that fund is typically funded at about $40,000 each year. And then we see how it goes. Well, previously, council wanted us to do a skunk and raccoon remediation program, which we did without funding, and just thought we'd maybe spend a couple of $1,000s and that would be it. That was, I think last year we spent, each year's grown kind of exponentially as word gets out. And so last year, I think we spent 17,000. This year, we've spent 24,000, and we haven't hit spring yet. And so typically what's happened is that fund has gone negative each year and then been made whole at the roll up at the end of the year. And what we'd like to do is fund that in entirety upfront, so that all the departments know the amount of money that's in there and available for use. Concurrent with that, I guess, what would be a big help is that skunk and raccoon remediation program. We have an offer from Salt Lake County to take on that entire responsibility for approximately $25,000 annually. So we didn't have to deal with it at all. So we'll either spend about $55,000 this year is my estimate, or we can turn the whole thing over to Salt Lake County and they'll do it for $25,000. So my recommendation would be, if we're going to continue with the skunk and raccoon remediation program, that we enter an agreement with Salt Lake County and save ourselves some dollars, but at the same time fund those dollars so that the abatement program can return to doing the activities that it typically funded. My first slide, my next slide just involves needs we have at the animal shelter. The animal shelter is chronically understaffed, under personnel. Turnover is a big problem out there just because we don't have enough people. And typically that's at the technician level. So each day is or many days, it's what I call a cascading failures, because there are things that have to be done every day at the animal shelter. Animals got to be cleaned up after and fed. And if a shelter technician doesn't come in, then one of the clerks typically will do the cleaning. One of the officers will get off the road and become a clerk. And so we have people, it's like I tell people, it's the only division in the city where our employees show up every day not knowing what job they're going to be doing that day. And so the resolution for that would be simply to add a couple more technicians so that we always have personnel to start out the day with clean kennels and fed animals, and then go from there. My last point is our graffiti building. The graffiti truck, you've probably seen that. It's a great vehicle. It has a lot of complex equipment on it that's water-based. And so in the wintertime, every day, Jake Shafizadeh, who's our graffiti technician, has to spend a couple hours and unwinterize it. And then at the end of the day, he's got to winterize it again for the next day. So I think 5 years ago, Wayne allocated $50,000 for that facility, which wasn't enough, but it was a good start. And a couple of years ago, he added another 50,000. So there's 100,000 that's been budgeted for that, which I think gets us into the ballpark to add a bay to the animal shelter out there that will allow us to store that vehicle and also meet OSHA requirements for storing paint, chemicals, and that type of thing. Our biggest barrier, I think, at this point is the facilities personnel being able to have the time to get on that project. So I'm hoping in the current year or in the coming year that Jake Arslanian and his folks will have a chance to make that project go. And hopefully the 100,000 is enough to make that happen, but we'll see. And that's all I've got.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Morris?
Well, so if I have a couple people in my district, they call me about raccoon last year. So if they call me again, I'm gonna refer to you, or how are we gonna do that? Is that right?
Yes, they called the animal shelter.
Commercial.
Yeah, the animal shelter will do just a quick screening. We don't provide the services for businesses, apartment complexes, that type of thing. But if it's a single family home that somebody is owner occupied, then yeah, we'll certainly send our contractor out.
Thank you.
You talked about the need for another shelter tech position. On the slide, it shows a shelter adoption specialist also. You didn't talk about that.
Yeah, that position would kind of be a hybrid, a part-time for both. And so we'd use that person as a backup if it's shelter technician calls in sick or vacation or whatever. And then when we have time, then we'd have them kind of transition to the adoption specialist role to get the animals that we have in the shelter out. So we're hoping that position gives us a little flexibility with the people.
What's our maximum capacity for the animal shelter as far as animals?
Depending on if we double them up, fortunately, it's not like the prison where there's some kind of a ceiling where the ACLU won't let you go over. I mean, we can put 120 dogs in there pretty easily. If you've been out there, each one of the kennels is split. And so that makes it easy to clean, because then you open the split, send the dogs to one side and clean. But you can do it without doing it. It just takes a little longer, but
What's our average
I think,
residency?
yeah, I think right now we've got 90. So we're everybody adopted an animal during COVID and they're all bringing them back now. So we've got more than our fair share of animals.
So if we hire this new person and costs go up, Taylorsville, we just bill them more the next year?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just a yearly thing, and Taylorsville's in a position. Taylorsville owns 1/3 of our shelter. So we warned them when they agreed to do that they're really kind of chained to the hip for us, because if they don't want to use us for providing animal services, they're welcome to go to Salt Lake County, but they have to pay us for their 1/3 of the shelter anyway. So they've kind of put themselves in a position where we frankly tell them what it's going to cost for the coming year, and they pay us.
So are they part of the skunk and raccoon program as well, or is that only West Valley residents?
That's only West Valley residents. We do some skunks over there, kind of historically. We've done some skunks for them. And so I think it's kind of a case by case basis, but would love to get them involved. And certainly if they're interested, the price would probably go up from the 25,000, and we just turn around and build Taylorsville if they wanted to participate.
Okay. And then if we turn the skunk over to the county, the residents would just call the county and schedule that? And do you know what their performance is, if it's good, or if they take a month and a half?
Yeah, no, I checked around with a couple other entities that have participated, and they're all satisfied with the service that's provided. So the contractor we have does a fantastic job, but everyone I've talked to says the county also does a pretty good job with it as well. So I think it's worth giving it a shot. Save 30,000 or so.
Can you get us a list of a couple of cities that contract with the county, and maybe a couple of cities that are like us and do it on our own?
nobody does it on their own. I mean, they're either with the county or they're not doing it. So we're the only ones that are doing it on our own. But yeah, sure, I can get you the list of the cities that are part of the kind of the consortium. It's really, they just hire a new person when a city comes on board. So we're essentially hiring one individual who will come here and really be our skunk and raccoon remediation guy.
Don't see any other questions. Thank you so much. Let me make sure I see Will if Will. Keep looking up, but I don't see anything. All right, we'll now have our community development presentation from Mr. Pastrick.
There, and that's all that can you promote? There we go. Just have 2 slides, so keep it brief. All right, so for this coming fiscal year, we had 5 items listed, and I'll walk through those briefly. So the first is just is a one-time cost to update the community development office space. So that would accomplish 3 things. First is to improve the security as you first walk into the space so that the entrance is more secure. The second, which is the main component, is just updating carpet, paint, ceiling, basically to match what's been done in other areas of City Hall. And then third is repurposing the space that was previously occupied by the redevelopment agency with neighborhood services. So that would be the 3 purposes in that number that came from facilities. The second point here on CDBG funding replacement. So this one's a little bit different in that, so this would be ongoing, but it would be basically using those funds in another place in the city. So right now, the particular funding that's used in community development from CDBG funds part of the neighborhood services positions. And with that, there are a lot of strings attached. Primarily, those funds have to be used in low-income areas. They also, so not only like for meetings, but also with individuals we work with have to be from those low-income areas. And so in trying to do neighborhood meetings and other functions that neighborhood services performs, it just really is limiting on functions they can fulfill. And so the hope there is to potentially repurpose those funds to another department that can more easily use those funds and not have the same or not be held down by the same restrictions. Third one, the Not My Hometown Days of Service growth. So we are anticipating in the next fiscal year 2 new areas being brought on to have days of service. And so that 20,000 would help the city support those functions. And primarily the purpose of those funds would be equipment rental. So as we do projects, we can, depending on the project, have equipment that's needed for that, as well as just materials. So construction materials that the city helps to supplement on some projects. And again, that's consistent. So right now we have 3 areas we're covering, and that 20,000 is consistent with the funding we have for the 3 areas. The next one there on some promotions. So when it comes to inspectors and planners, as they have the necessary education, certification, and experience, we try, as the budget allows, to offer promotions to keep people that have those certifications, but also allow them to do more or have more responsibility. So as an example, an inspector that has higher certifications is more flexible in terms of what they can inspect. And so it allows them to do more jobs or a variety of jobs as they get more certifications. And finally, for next year on the outside fees. So this one again is a little bit unique. So most of the fees on the building permit side, we collect a lot of fees as permits are issued, but we're required also to pay out some money as fees are collected. So the 2 examples are the state requires that 1% of our building permit fees are paid to the state. Okay. And that's been an ongoing requirement for many years. And while we actually charge for that, so we're reimbursed for that, our department has a budget for that for those fees. And so if our permit revenue exceeds what our budget is, we have to find some way to cover that cost. So again, the city's getting reimbursed, but our department is limited to our budget. Same with that when it comes to our third-party structural reviews. So we, on more complex buildings, we do have contracts with engineering firms that do their structural review. And so there again, in the last several years, the amount that we're paying on structural review exceeds what's in our budget. And so again, if the city's still collecting those funds on the permit side, but our department only has so much that's allocated in our budget. Hopefully that makes sense. Yes, Mayor, I see a question there.
So the fees that you collect do not go to your department's budget?
Correct.
They just go to the general fund and then you're told how much you can spend?
So we're given a budget for how much we can use to pay the 1% to the state as well as our structural review. So if either of those amounts goes over, then we have to find some other way to pay for that
So
cost.
you have to guess how many permits you're gonna get a year to figure your budget. But
That's just a bizarre way to funnel the money. Okay. Because you've definitely made the 1%.
Correct.
It's just not being given to your department. That 1% is not automatically going in to cover that cost item for item.
Correct.
And if we just changed how that went, that 1% goes back into your budget to cover that outside fee period.
Right, and a lot of it's mainly to do with, we just have to set our budget up front. So we do have to do our best to predetermine what that amount will be. We put together the budget, you guys approve the budget,
Yeah.
and then we
So we
do our
can't set
best.
up a budget as a percentage of revenue. It's just dollar amounts.
Correct. Yep.
So you're getting penalized for having more building go on.
The city's not.
But there's
No, I
a
know,
difference
his
between,
department is.
between what's budgeted and what's actually expended, right?
Right.
And those funds can be moved if we collect more than what we budgeted for.
We could.
Because we have budget openings.
Right, so that is one way we could do it. It's just, the city as a whole, it makes no difference. It's just, is the money here, is the money there? Right.
But in those budget openings, I see that happening easily.
For Steve's purposes, right?
Yeah.
He's having to come up with additional funds.
Right. And
Out
so
of hand budget.
we're just looking at just for like the last couple of fiscal years. And again, it fluctuates, but 7,500 would be close to what would cover that.
Steve, you have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
You have someone in your department to track down this number.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So the 7,500 is we did look at the last couple of years and
And the budget based on the entire, the whole thing. Because the money going in, run into the city, and then you don't know, or you have someone to track it down.
sure. So I can tell you, I don't have that handy, but I can tell you how much we paid in terms of the 1% and then how much was in our budget, if that helps. We did collect that information for the last couple of years and could tell you the difference.
Mayor, looks like Councilman Whetstone has a question.
Okay, I can't see him on there, so thank you. Councilman Whetstone.
Thanks, Mayor. I just had a question. I don't know if you're still talking about the outside fees, but I had a question on CDBG funding. If you want me
Yes,
to.
sir.
So isn't there a committee that sort of determines all the expenses that CDBG funding will cover? And then a second question, do we currently have an employee that's being used and using those funds from CDBG funding?
So Mr. Morris can probably speak more to CDBG more broadly, but just looking at this particular request is dealing with neighborhood services. So we have 70,000 in CDBG funding that's specifically covering part of the positions in neighborhood services, so salaries. And so again, the concern on this particular one is just with the strings that are attached and the limitations that puts on what those employees can do in their jobs.
So the partial funding that CDBG is covering, that would then go to, I guess the city would cover that if
Well,
we were to reallocate this.
Right. So that one or a couple of possibilities. So it potentially could fund something like victim advocates or possibly a COP, for example. And then those, it's more not necessarily coming up with new 70,000, but just shifting and putting the funds to another purpose within the city where the strings that exist are easier to meet.
Got it. Thanks.
And in terms of longer term, so in talking with my hometown leadership, looking down the road 5 years, there's the potential for a total of 9 areas. So we have 3 currently, and that's ambitious, I know. And so that ask there in terms of the 124,000 would be again looking at the budget we have currently for the 3 areas and then trying to expand to match that. And then finally, with the neighborhood services trailer replacement, what's a little bit unique here is with our fleet, just normal vehicles, we have those in a rotation. The trailers that neighborhood services uses really aren't part of that rotation. And so this particular trailer is getting pretty dated. In fact, this particular one, Craig corrected me, is pushing 20 years old and is one of the smaller trailers. And so having a newer, larger trailer does a couple things. It allows us to better serve events, but also minimizes the amount of emptying and unloading where you can have more in the trailer, not have to be constantly moving things in and out. So that's the last request for the long term, the next 5 years. Yes, sir.
Your 124 for hometown growth include additional trailers? I mean, we have multiple days of service going on with 9 areas instead of 3. I would guess we're gonna need some more trailers.
So great question. So this particular trailer is more looking at event support, the 20,000. In talking with Public Works, so their presentation will be coming up in the next month or so. We're talking with them about adding possibly some equipment to the Public Works budget that would be helping my hometown. And so those are things we're looking at, just don't have that as part of our budget, but it would be things that potentially the city could have pieces of equipment, like, for example, a stump grinder, let's say, that the city would own, but could be used for my hometown events or days of service, excuse me.
It's probably a question for Public Works, but do you know what our cost is for when we drop a dumpster for the neighborhood dumpster program? And would that be more feasible than buying more trailers where we schedule a dumpster drop for those days of service?
Craig?
I do know that Dan plans to discuss that in his presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So this is like one of those white trailers that has all the tables and chairs and
That's right.
all that stuff for mainly the neighborhood watch parties and things like that.
Right, so we have currently, there's 3 different trailers that we have, and each has kind of a different function in terms of the types of events and what's stored in that, in addition to storage space for things we can't fit in the trailers, so.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, ma'am.
Okay.
First one is I wanna with my hometown. Right there is how many employees we are working with my hometown?
So we're supporting my hometown on a number of fronts. So on one side, there's the accounting, so keeping track of funding that's being utilized, receipts, those, just the accounting side of things. We also have primarily with Craig and his staff, helping support events and also just working with my hometown leadership. when it comes to organizing new areas, how to support those areas. We also have a number of different departments, including Public Works, that we meet with the leadership regularly. And so just coordinating resources, the Parks Department's been involved. So it really is not so much on a full-time basis, but you have a number of employees that are involved in some way or another in just to support that effort.
Right now we have 3, but in the future, 3 places, but in the future we have 9. Is that we're gonna have more employees to support that because of growth we have or they have?
Great question. As that comes, as that happens, there's that possibility. Right now, we were looking at it simply from the basis of what we're spending in terms of days of service and like the community resource centers, those kinds of things. But there's certainly the possibility of having, particularly neighborhood services, the need for more staffing. And again, since we're not quite there yet, that's maybe one of those wait and see things, but I think that's a possibility for sure.
Like we fixing this driveway, cut the trees, things like that. Who paying that? Is that we paying that or someone else paying that up or donation from donors somewhere?
All of the above. So it depends. And we oftentimes projects are just cleanup. So it's more just time, volunteer time. We've had situations where the homeowner may be struggling where they say, I can cover the cost of materials if you can provide the labor. We've also had projects where the either donations are used to help with materials. And then we've had some, again, on a limited basis where the city provides the materials and then my hometown provides the volunteer labor to get the work done. So it's really a combination depending on the situation.
Okay. So you said all above. Just want to follow up with the question you answer. You have all above. So that means we have someone to kind of like expand up my hometown and to call for donors more involved or more donation into my hometown. Can you think? Because I was there a couple of times, volunteer to do here and there, and I found the guy from talk to the guy from Kraber. He said heard us and he came and So I'm thinking about is that we have some kind of like our employees, one particular one, just make connection with not only for here but also like donation from around U.S. only in Utah. They can contribute the money, whatever the funding, so we can have more driveway fixed, more windows fixed, more of the trees cut down. Is that possible?
So we can look right now, we don't have someone that's actively looking to collect donations. One thing I should point out too, we do have on some projects that involve where homes are in really bad shape. We've actually used some funds through the Community Preservation Department on some of the more distressed homes, we'll say. So that's another funding source that we've used. But again, in terms of donations right now, the city hasn't been actively pursuing donations that I'm aware of, Craig. And okay, I get the head nod no. So
yeah, because this is a good cause. I talked to a number of the people at the volunteers group, and they said that's a good program and they love to do that. And I think it's very much the same thing for everybody. If they have a company and they want to donate, some other companies I heard they donate some money into the the project we had in the past last year. And so we try to kind of reach out more people to get involved, to get more funding, so we can do more and more community city.
I know we've had a few, but it's been kind of just hit and miss. One, as an example, a year ago, a developer approached me and just said, "Hey, I'm looking to make a donation in the city." And I said, "Hey, how about my hometown?" And he made a donation, but it was more just him asking, not us, like pounding the pavement, so to speak. So
that's what I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, by the way, very good. Just let you know that my hometown is going very fast and people love it. And just a few people love it too. Hilldale and other places. So I heard good thing about my hometown.
Great feedback. Thank you.
Not seeing any other questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I say something before we go to item number F here?
Sure.
That'll be all right. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, is it better down in the new agenda, future agenda, or
Yeah,
let's do them in that
yeah,
in the
yeah,
report?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, let's stay with the
Yeah.
agenda. Okay, turn the time over to Mr. Flores for council meeting schedule discussion.
Yes, thank you. So I don't know who it was, but you had brought up,
Mr.
oh, that's
Christensen?
right. You had a discussion about potentially changing the schedule. I asked to talk with staff about any concerns there. And we would be good with it. We've talked about, we just have to be a little bit more prepared in advance to just know that we can't necessarily take something more last minute or on a weekly basis. So we just need to be prepared for that, which we can easily do. And Nicole, fill in anything I missed, but
Sorry, the option you were discussing was twice a month.
yes, twice a month, if that's something we move to. We would also ask that if we did have something come up last minute, we can always schedule an extra meeting during a month if we needed to. Or sometimes if the council's okay with it, we bring something to the study session and vote on it the same night if it was something pressing that needed to be done fairly quickly. So those would be a couple of things we would ask for or would like if that was something the council, if that was a schedule the council wanted to move to.
Which we've had on the current schedule too.
Yep, still happens right now.
I think the only thing I would add is that we looked into it. It wouldn't require an ordinance change. It would just be sort of a policy direction from the council. The only thing that I would have to do is just renotice the annual meeting schedule, which it's easy to do. But that would be really the only thing we'd have to do on that end. But
Did you look at the schedule to see if first and third would have less holidays or second and fourth would have less holidays?
we can look at it. I reached out to other cities just kind of in the greater Salt Lake area, just so I could get a better understanding of what other cities look like. And yeah, it's mostly first and third Tuesdays of the month is what the majority of the response I got. I don't know, let's see, Riverton was second and fourth Tuesday of the month. Everyone else that reached back to me, so South Jordan, Tooele, Bluffdale, Cottonwood Heights, and Murray, and West Jordan as well, were the first and third Tuesday of the month. They all did that. The only other city that does the 4 Tuesdays was Sandy. And they're just the same as us, the first 4 Tuesdays of the month. But I could look into which one would be better if the council's leaning toward that, just based on like maybe budget items that come up. I would imagine, given the majority is the first and third, that may be something, but I can double check if the council's direction is to do something like that.
Well, and I know there's not most holidays are observed on the Monday. Mill Creek is the only one that really has Monday meetings.
Yeah, that was another interesting thing. It was all Tuesdays.
Couple Wednesdays.
Yeah, there was a couple Wednesdays. And I didn't hear back from everyone, but everyone that I did hear back from. Yeah. And their structure was very similar to ours. So study meeting around the same time. So either 4:35, and then with a regular meeting, 6:37. That was the norm response I got as well.
Okay.
Can you scan that and send it out to us?
Oh, yeah, sure. The response I got.
Yeah.
So any discussion? Any preferences?
Just bringing it up so that we can, not keep canceling meetings.
Right.
Make it a little easier on everybody if we had everything scheduled.
Right. So is your preference to go 2 meetings then?
If that's what the staff is comfortable with it. They bring the items to us.
Right.
They're
Well,
comfortable. Do I be comfortable?
Historically, they've just canceled, so I figured they were pretty confident with that, so. But it sounds like they can make it work. Lars, any preferences?
Seems like a big change. It seems like I've only been on the council for 10 years and most of our meetings, we've had important things to talk about. So I'm hesitant to make this change. I just don't want us to miss talking about important things.
I don't think staff would let us do that, but.
But if our time is cut in half, then how can we really give due diligence to all the items that normally come before us?
I'm good with Lars, to be honest with you. I always support him. A couple of things why I support him. The number one is will delay our process. Like if developers or investor, they come here to want to do something with our city, try to build townhouses. And we got like only 2 meetings a month, and that will delay the project, will take longer than have to go from start to finish. But right now, we don't have that problem. That's the first item in my head. The second item is that Mayor Land right now is she very good. She actively engaged. She go to her office very much, quite often. But in the future, if we have another mayor and they say, well, I don't have to be there twice a month, I just show up. And that will, when I'm gonna show up when I can, that will turn over to the city manager, take more control into the city. And that caused a problem. And I see that in the past already, we've seen in the past. So I kind of like also like Lars said, a lot of things very important. We need to solve the problem immediately. We don't want to delay it for our people here in our city. I feel like we here we're obligated to do that. We don't want to turn our back. You know, with people, they need help with something, and we turn away from them. That's not very good. I would love to have twice a month. Why? Because I'm gonna stay home with my family. That's a beautiful thing. Why I have to be here 4 times a month? I have spent my time with my family. But the reason I want to be here 4 times a month, because I want to do something with the city. If there's some problem, we can solve the problem right away. I have to wait for 2 weeks and we get into our council meeting. It takes too long. And we have to call a special meeting. A special meeting that irregular. Some people, they like it. Some people, they don't like it because they're not really in our schedule. So I kind of go with Lars. I said, well, stay what we have right now. I think it's the perfect.
It does seem like in the last couple of years that, you know, way back, we used to always go until about 6:30. But there's been a lot of times where we've finished at 5:30 or even sooner sometimes. So I might be willing to allow 3 times a month, maybe try that out.
So how many regular meetings does the planning commission have? No, they only have 2.
Yeah, they study 1 week and then, yeah.
Yeah, so they only have 2 a month as well. So for developers, they're on the every other week schedule. And are they second and fourth?
They are.
So we would be opposite. So it could come from them to us the next week. So I don't think it would delay it too severely on that point, just so that's kind of I don't know if all of you know their schedule.
I'm not worried about developers. They can wait.
Hey, we're the quickest city. They love our city because.
But I think reducing it in any amount is less time for public comment. It's less time for us with staff and with a new city manager. So I think with Lars. I think 4 is fine. 3, I might be okay with 3, but I think where we're at. And, you know, I know Don's concern was, well, we're not acting on business. We don't have regular meetings, but it's okay. There's more to council than just
My
business.
word was just, let's schedule it and do it.
Yeah. And I think we still ought to have a regular meeting, even if we don't have business, just for public comment. I think that's only another 10 or 15 minutes of our evening, but that's where I'm at.
I think I like that one. I like that one too, because if we don't have meeting for regular meeting, we can like schedule for public comment and then we go.
Just not cancel any meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I would just recall my comment from last meeting, which was that I don't mind staying at 6:30, and if there's no one there to provide comment, then we leave early, and if there is, listen to them on the record and get their comment on the record. If there's no further business.
Okay.
But as for frequency, I don't have an opinion. If we can do the work effectively and efficiently, and staff feels like that won't cramp the workflow, if you can do it in 2 times a month or 3 times a month or 4 times a month, I'm okay with either way. But yeah, my main point was about the public being able to put their comments on the record.
So 4 times a month. And if we didn't have a study session, so we don't have anything for the regular meeting, we still have the meeting and just collect public input. Public comment and then close and done.
And
So-
then I think we also discussed that in that situation, it wouldn't necessarily require the entire staff to also be with us there, but somebody.
Yeah, because that is some extra time for them
Sure.
where there's nothing to present. And then would you want to have the flag ceremony and everything else, or just walk in, have public comment, walk out?
I think we should still have an opening ceremony.
I mean, it only takes 3 minutes usually, so I'm just making sure we answer all the questions before Nicole gets it all worked up and then nothing happens, doesn't what you guys wanted. So still have the regular schedule, just nothing past public comment.
And it might be good just for us to revisit this in 5 months and say, okay, we feel differently after we've done this.
Sure. And after the new city manager has his feet or her feet under her.
Okay.
You run into unintended consequences may be perfect.
Well, I think a little bit at a time to, have just the public comment and see how that goes.
Sure.
Because it would be disheartening to realign your schedule to come down here and then nobody's here.
But then again, other cities do it and they figured it out.
Yeah, you just come twice a month.
They're just not doing as many
They
great
just don't
things as
have
we're
100,
doing.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably 5,000 people to come in.
Okay, got that, Nicole?
Got it.
All right. Thank you. All right, council calendar, we're
I don't know that I got it. So we're just holding off in terms of the frequency. We're just gonna keep it the same.
Or-
We're just gonna go with, if there's no business being submitted, that we'll just have an opening comment session and we can adjourn. Yeah, so we didn't talk about the frequency of the meeting.
Yeah, just stay with the 4.
Okay, I'm on.
Nobody really, there wasn't a consensus to change to 2.
Yeah, okay,
So,
thank you.
okay. So the council calendar, did anybody have any issues with that? All right. Potential future agenda items.
Thank you, Mayor. Here, I want to have a comment. I've been here for 12 years. And, Lon and Lux and Mayor, they're here too. I see that's kind of type of presentation we have every year before we have our strategic planning meeting. And I think it's very normal and also kind of like business as usual. I want to make it change a little bit. I don't know with you guys. I want to see the head of department, each one of them share their strengths and their weakness in their department. So I can get a better picture about their department. For example, I pick like up me right now at the moment. My strength is I'm not shy to speak up anything. My weakness is English is my second language. So I want to see kind of that picture in my head about this department. And when we go into strategic planning meeting, I have that in my head. Because all the numbers, they can send me, they can email me. And that reason why last time I said, well, we can do the meeting strategic planning meeting in January. We don't have to wait for until February. We got all the numbers, they send and they can email it to me. They don't have to give a presentation about that. I just want a more detail because we're gonna have a new city manager here soon. And the system we have in the past, I'm not gonna tell anything wrong about anything about, but I think we need that for the last 12 years I've been here and I see that very much the same thing. We need to make a little change. That's what I want. The head of the department here we have, that's not their fault because that they follow that system. And we really want to see the strength and the weakness and how they capitalize on their strengths and how they tackle their weakness. That's the point, the whole key for this department.
To tag on, I mean, I don't know if we want to hear the director saying what their strength or weakness is, but I think the department, what do you think is your department's strength, weakness? That sounds great. I would be more interested to know what opportunities they see to better serve our citizens. So that kind of goes along with what you're saying, but I think that would be interesting to see what they see as an opportunity to better serve.
I agree that the level of detail and granularity, when we give them a 10-minute presentation, is not there, right? There's definitely room to dive in deeper. But I also think that that's a strategic exercise for them to come with us with what is their immediate priorities when they're looking at, like, if you only have 10 minutes with us, what are you going to ask for? So I appreciate that, but I do feel like, yeah, then now that we have some of those upfront, top of mind kind of topics that, yeah, we need to have more time and more discussion to get a little more granular. But I think at least for an introduction to some of the priorities that I've enjoyed this format so far, so long as we continue to dive deeper on all of those points.
Well, I think where you're doing it now, we've gotten some different presentations than we would have received from a general overall budget presentation at strategic planning.
Sure.
Even though all those presentations were made, they still came through one filter. We're getting the filters now. And hearing, this has been a problem for me for about 5 years now, and we've allocated some money to it. We need some more, which we didn't get before.
Yeah, and I think just in the presentation we had tonight by Mr. Morris, just knowing that he's waiting for a different department to build his project. As strategic plan, we may say, let's just hire an outside contractor and not worry about our inside people doing it. So I think it's nice to hear those things and really hear them and understand, well, maybe our facilities department has too much going on. And if it's been 5 years, let's just hire it out. Let's outsource it and get it done. Because the money's been there. It just we haven't had the people to do it. So I think we need to listen to that level as well. That's what I took back from today's presentation. So I think we just need to think outside the box and help them get what they need. So I've appreciated the presentations.
I think we need to be careful about what the lines are between what's our role and what's the staff role. For us to get involved in individual departments and how they're going to accomplish building their storage unit. I don't see that as a city council. That's
That
that's a-
detail isn't, but the directive could be.
Yeah,
It's been 5 years and they haven't got it done. I mean, they need to have
we need to
a
help
little more
them
direction, I guess.
or
Well,
more help
maybe-
from us.
maybe- we don't see everything that happens in the other side of the wall, right? And I don't know, we could receive more communication from staff, but I don't see that as a policy decision. It's more of what a staff should be deciding.
But I think we are policymakers. We need to see something we can help them out to just support them to better serve the community. And if we don't know that.
To be honest, I thought they had already
Built
put
it?
that in. Yeah.
Nope.
Because we haven't heard about it since then.
We have it every year.
No.
Yeah, in the
But,
presentation,
it's been
yeah,
Brought up,
every year. So that's why I'm thinking we need to help them more.
not saying that it's a priority.
Right.
We need to maybe help them.
Prioritize it.
Help them reprioritize.
I've been pleased with the presentations as of right now, so.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I think I really like it that short but get to the point. Yeah.
We still have future
Future agenda items,
mayor.
lots of time.
Yeah. I've got some new information on a zoning change at the property of 5700 West. And apparently staff also does. And I'm recommending that we didn't pass that zoning change, so I'm recommending we put it back on the agenda in the future.
Okay, is this the one out on just east of Mountain View,
Yeah, 5700 West.
diesel repair? Okay. Do we need a motion or just is this enough?
I think just enough head
Okay.
nods that the council's okay with us bringing that back would be
Okay.
great.
I appreciate them making the changes, so let's reward them. Okay, let's do it. Okay, I have one thing. It's really weird, but there's been enough on the news in the last month and a half of carbon monoxide poisoning in commercial buildings, in rentals. Do all of our public buildings have carbon monoxide in them? Not asking if it's required by building code, I'm asking if we have them.
We shouldn't have.
Yes,
carbon
the sensor,
monoxide.
I mean, the sensor, sorry, the sensors in the buildings. Do we have sensors?
So Jerry Thompson's shaking his head that no, we do not.
Okay. So when we get to that department, I'd like to know why and what it would take to put them, because we don't want to be a news item. Because the fitness center, people started dropping, over, or any of our other public buildings. Our police stations, our fire stations, all those different. Because it's been in some really wonky places. I mean, Smith's. And luckily, the fire department went in to get their food and went, it smells weird, and it was the carbon monoxide. Pardon?
Went back out and got their meters.
Yeah, and said, yes, let's evacuate the place. So instead of being a news story, we check into that.
Yes, we will get you some info on that.
And I know the fire department does respond quickly because I had some of my detectives go off in my home. And I called the chief in his capacity as chief. In 72, I said, don't send a big response over. I just want to have somebody check it.
Don't have,
Well, they don't have small
no,
responses.
they don't.
My grandson stopped in and my son stopped in on the way home and said, what's going on?
Was that the other day, just a couple of days ago?
Yeah, last week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
do you
drove
remember?
by
They
and
checked
saw.
the ones that were going off and we found out that some homeowner no names, but they put those sensors in 2007.
Oh, it didn't change?
Hadn't changed them yet.
Okay, so what did they
were
inform you?
just saying we're tired of being here.
Yeah, so are they only good for 10 years?
10 years.
Okay.
And now you can buy them and they're sealed for that 10 years. You don't have to change a battery every year.
Oh, nice.
There.
You don't get a 3 AM alarm that the battery needs to be changed?
You can't even open them.
Sweet.
Mayor, I do have one item, small
Okay.
item. So the Healthy West Valley Committee is planning to partner with USU in 2024. And they want to do a well-being survey, which basically analyzes the overall well-being of residents within a city and then provides feedback to the city on what could potentially be improved. So the professor that's going to be conducting the survey has just offered to come and do a short presentation to the council about what this would look like. And if it's just something that you'd be interested in knowing, so you can pass along to residents. Just wanted to see if the council would be okay with that.
I think it sounds great. Okay, I don't see any no's.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, any council reports?
Just that we did the opening ribbon cutting for the Pollo Loco last week. It's every time I've passed it, it's had a line both in the drive-through and in the walk-up.
Oh, nice.
So
Might have passed me in one of those lines after.
there's been some cold days in those lines.
Well, the ribbon cutting day, I was surprised how many people were lined up outside and it was snowing.
And I came back later that night thinking I'd stop and get something and they were still lined up like that.
Oh, were they really? Well, it's good food, so. Does anybody have another grand opening report?
It hasn't opened yet.
Jack in the Box is
Yeah.
lovely, yeah.
Yesterday was their hard open.
Yeah.
They were soft open Friday and Saturday, or
Yes.
Saturday, Sunday, something like that.
Saturday, yeah. So yeah, I was the first person to order sourdough jack. That's the flavors of my childhood, and don't have to drive to Idaho to get Jack in the Box anymore. So it's fantastic.
Is that
Very
the
good.
recommendation then, is the sourdough?
Kudos, that's one of many suggestions.
What is the recommendation? Sourdough what?
Sourdough jack is excellent sandwich, you know,
Okay, so is that just a hamburger on sourdough bread?
pretty much a grilled cheese hamburger, yeah.
Oh, grilled cheese hamburger.
Sourdough bread.
I've never been to a Jack in the Box, so the whole menu is foreign to me. So, okay,
Oh, menu's good, yeah.
great. Okay, anybody else? All right, we do have need for a closed session today for personal competency.
Yep, we will call it that.
Or did you have something else to call it?
No, we'll go with that.
Okay. If anyone would like to make that motion, and then we will adjourn from closed session. We won't come back into this. We'll discuss nothing else and just close from there.
I would move then that we adjourn this meeting and go into closed session. And from that closed session, we will adjourn and take up no further business for personal competency. Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Kamic?
Councilman Fitzie Umanu.
Aye.
Councilman Whitstone,
Yes.
Councilman Herman,
Yes.
Councilman Hune,
Yes.
Councilman Nordfelt,
Yes.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
and Mayor Ling.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, we'll send out the invite to Councilman Whetstone and take 5 minutes and then adjourn or proceed back to our closed session.
And Will, you should have that invite. If you don't, let me know.
And thanks for everybody
Okay.
coming.
Thanks.